Thanks a lot. So I'm going to take you to a little journey to the Middle Ages, to the Muslim world first, and then to Christian, to see how Jewish medical knowledge has been transmitted, translated, and transformed. In the Muslim world, it all started with Islamic intellectual culture, absorbing Greek philosophy, science, medicine, and building on this a large body of knowledge of high culture. This is when Arab physicians elaborated on Greek medicine, compared encyclopedias, and led the world in the description and treatment of various diseases. The process by which medieval Judaism appropriated Greco-Arab medicine began in the late 9th century, and this appropriation of Greco-Arabic culture is of that time by Arabic-speaking Jewish scholars. It's reflected in the book of the period in every realm of intellectual activity. It's very important to remember that this is the time when Arabic-speaking Jewish scholars had mastered classical Arabic, and therefore they had access to almost all the knowledge of Arab medicine, which is a central aspect when it comes to Jewish-Muslim symbiosis. This is also the time when in the Islamic world, from Baghdad to North Africa and Al-Andalus, Jewish physicians used their expertise in medicine as a door opener in the circles of learned and other political elites. From 10th century onward, we have several Jewish physicians and sometimes even whole dynasties of Jewish physicians who were linked to the court of Muslim rulers and other elite families. Moses Maimonides is perhaps one of the most, the rabbinic authority physician, a court physician, and a philosopher is perhaps one of the most famous characters of this time. So besides this greater social mobility, medicine was also an area of intensive contact with only few restrictions in which Jews, Muslims, and Christians could become each other patients, students, and masters. So there was this very obvious symbiotic quality to the relation between Jews and Arabs when it came to medicine. Things were very different in the Christian world, where in this context we have historians far from referring to symbiosis between Judaism and the dominant culture. Here we have terms isolation and seclusion. And this holds to varying degrees for all the Jewish cultures in Christian Europe, be it in South or in the North. With a few exceptions, Jewish physicians didn't know the language of the dominant culture, and therefore they didn't have any access to the majority cultures. And this is when, as a result, any transmission of knowledge in Christian Europe in the Middle Ages could come and came only via translations into Hebrew or to books compiled in Hebrew by Arabic-speaking Jewish scholars. And this is the time when Arabic-speaking Jewish scholars, apart their role as important practitioners, became also transmitters and translators of Arab and Greek medicine. By the 15th century, we have almost all important works of Arabic and Greek medicine translated into Hebrew. Thanks, Miriam. So, as a consequence of this translation, we have Jewish physicians came to be held in a very high esteem because they were acquainted with the wisdom of both Greek and Islamic medicine. Secondly, we have a number of Hebrew medical libraries being built in these times, which also meant that High Middle Ages marked the beginning of a culture of professional medicine among Jews. And finally, as a course of study, medicine exposed Jews also to other related disciplines. It's also very important to remember that these medical treatises were the primary sources of education for Jewish students who were mostly in Southern Europe, who were mostly excluded from the universities at the time, till the middle of 14th century, and could learn their knowledge via private instructions, which were mostly conducted through collective or sometimes individual study of texts. Can we go to the next slide? Individual study of the text, be it in a lecture or by just reading from a written text. As a consequence, we have number of we have medical treatises being assembled into like personal, authentic libraries, and these libraries were had different manuscripts, be it in Arabic, be it in Judeo-Arabic, be it also in Hebrew, which then had very long and productive afterlife. For example, among Castilian Jews in Hebrew as well as in Latin. So this is one of the aspects, one of the chapters of my thesis, because I'm working on early modern Judeo-Arabic medical manuscripts, and one of my questions is to try to understand how come we have Judeo-Arabic manuscripts, who are the consumers of this Judeo-Arabic manuscripts in the Muslim world, in Christian Europe, what kind of libraries did these manuscripts use, and number of other questions that I'm trying to answer within the context of my thesis, and this was what I wanted to tell you a bit about today. Thank you.